Today, I'm going to be talking about an opinion I've had for quite a while. I think that Richard was Samantha's Big. Everybody talks about Carrie and Big as the great complicated relationship of Sex and the City. But if you really think about it, Samantha had her own version of Big. His name was Richard Wright.
Richard, whose death we've been plotting?
And the reason I think this is so interesting is because Richard brought out a side of Samantha that we almost never see. Before Richard, Samantha seems fearless. She's confident. She's independent. She's usually the person telling everyone else not to get too attached, but then Richard shows up. And suddenly, Samantha starts acting just like Carrie did. For the first time, she's worrying about where she stands, feeling insecure, questioning whether someone truly wants her. And that's exactly what Carrie spent years doing with Big. One thing I've always found interesting is that both Carrie and Samantha fell for people who made them experience emotions they weren't used to dealing with. Big made Carrie feel uncertain. Richard made Samantha feel vulnerable, and neither woman handled it particularly well. I also think it's important to remember just how significant Richard was to Samantha. This wasn't just another relationship. This wasn't just another man she dated for a few episodes. Richard was one of the very few people Samantha genuinely fell in love with. In fact, one of the most memorable moments in their relationship is when Samantha tells Richard that she loves him. For a lot of characters, saying "I love you" isn't a huge deal, but for Samantha, it was. Samantha spent years protecting herself emotionally. She was comfortable with casual relationships. She liked being independent. She liked being in control. So, when she told Richard she loved him, it meant she had lowered her guard in a way we rarely see. That's one of the reasons his betrayal feels so devastating. It's not just that he cheated. It's that Samantha gave him something she almost never gave anyone: her trust, her vulnerability, and her love. I also think part of the reason Samantha fell so hard for Richard is because, in a lot of ways, they were very similar. They both valued independence. Both enjoyed being in control. Both were used to keeping relationships casual, and both liked having the upper hand emotionally. That's why their relationship felt different from the beginning. For probably the first time, Samantha met someone who played by the same rules she did, someone who understood her world, someone who wasn't intimidated by her confidence. And I think that's part of what made Richard so attractive to her. The problem is that when two people are very similar, they often understand each other better, but they can also hurt each other in very similar ways. Because neither person wants to be the vulnerable one. Neither wants to take the bigger emotional risk, and eventually, somebody has to. In this relationship, that person ended up being Samantha, and that's exactly when everything started to change. The reason I compare Richard to Big isn't because they're exactly the same person. It's because they create the same emotional experience. Both relationships are built on inconsistency. Both relationships leave the women questioning where they stand. And both relationships bring out fears that were already there beneath the surface. Also, there's another similarity that I don't think gets talked about enough. At one point, Samantha cheats on Smith with Richard. And the reason that moment always stands out to me is because it feels very similar to what Carrie did with Aidan and Big. Both women are in relationships with good men. Both women know they probably shouldn't go back, and yet they find themselves pulled toward the person who hurt them. Not because it's a good decision, but because they never fully got over them. To me, that's another reason Richard feels like Samantha's version of Big. Because even when she had someone better in front of her, part of Samantha was still emotionally attached to Richard. That's why I don't think Richard ruined Samantha. I think he revealed her. Before Richard, it was easy for Samantha to believe she was completely comfortable with relationships. And I think one of the biggest signs of that is how much Samantha started compromising parts of herself around Richard. This is the same Samantha who once said,
"The only way to do a threesome is to be the guest star."
The guest star?
Yeah. The girl the couple gets to come in, screw, and leave.
The pinch hitter.
Exactly. It's perfect. All the great sex without wondering what it'll do to your relationship.
In other words, Samantha was usually the person making the rules. But with Richard, she actually broke one of her own. She agreed to something she clearly wasn't comfortable with because she didn't want to lose him, and I don't think that's a small thing. To me, that's one of the clearest signs of how much power this relationship had over her. It was easy to believe she wasn't afraid of getting hurt. But Richard exposed something much deeper. He showed that Samantha could be just as vulnerable as everyone else.
Now your heart's broken too.
And I think that's why his betrayal hit her so hard. Not just because he cheated, but because she trusted him. For maybe the first time in the series, Samantha let her guard down, and Richard proved her worst fears right. What frustrates me most about Richard isn't even the cheating. It's that he agreed to something he clearly wasn't capable of giving. If he didn't want a committed relationship, that's one thing, but he acted like he did. He made Samantha believe they were building something real, and then he turned around and destroyed that trust. That's one of the biggest reasons I have such a hard time defending him. If Richard had been honest about what he wanted from the beginning, I might feel differently. But instead, he convinced Samantha they were creating something meaningful. And when that trust was broken, the damage went far beyond the cheating itself. What makes this storyline so interesting is that even after Samantha and Richard break up, you can still see the impact he had on her. She becomes more suspicious. She becomes less trusting, and it's like she's always on the lookout for signs that she's going to be hurt again. In a strange way, he forced Samantha to confront something she had spent years avoiding. The reality that loving someone means risking disappointment.
This man said he loved me, and I caught him eating another woman's pussy.
Carry on, ma'am.
And while I hate what happened to her, I do think it made her a more complete character. Because for the first time, we got to see the woman behind all the confidence. The woman who's scared. The woman who's vulnerable. The woman who wants love just as much as everybody else. The more I watch their relationship, the more I think Samantha's story with Richard mirrors Carrie's story with Big. Both women fell in love. Both women ignored warning signs. Both women kept wishing that person would become the partner they needed, and both women ended up hurt because of it. The difference is that Samantha eventually walked away. Carrie never really did. And maybe that's why Samantha's story feels a little healthier in the end. She accepted him for who he was, and then she made the decision to leave, not because she didn't love him, but because love wasn't enough anymore.
I love you.
I love you too, Richard. But I love me more.
She knew she deserved more than broken promises and constant disappointment. And for me, I think that's one of the strongest moments in Samantha's entire character arc. But that's just how I see it. Do you think Richard was Samantha's version of Big, or do you think their relationship was completely different? Let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching.